So my first statement I was thinking when I thought I'd come in here, and a few people said, "Oh, don't bother talking to the east," which we consider you over here. And is where do you think Western Sydney starts? Where is Western Sydney? So, yeah, all right. So it was it's an interesting thought. The first thing, what I say and tell people is, at Strathfield is where the coastal breeze stops. All right. So everyone who knows about the fresh air that they do get at times on the east side of Sydney Basin, it refreshes. The west of Sydney does not ever get that coastal breeze. So to me, the start of the West Sydney is Strathfield, and it heads west, and there's lots of it. Okay, and yes, Parramatta it's not the geographic centre. It's just west of Blacktown, but it goes Parramatta. The big centres are basically Parramatta, Blacktown, and then Penrith if you go straight west, and obviously there's Liverpool, Fairfield towards the south, going down towards Camden, which we consider the southwest, and then the Hills District itself, and behind that coming up to the Hawkesbury, and that's the northwest area. And given all that, I just want to explain that before we even get into this topic, this is what the Sydney's about. It's a basin. The Sydney Basin, a lot of people know about it, and it captures air, all right? In fact, if you know about the study done on the air quality and the concerns of the coal facilities, or more the coal generating power stations, Liddell, everyone heard of Liddell, up on the Hunter Valley, a lot of the air from there actually enters the Sydney Basin and hangs around for 2 to 3 days before it leaves. So our Sydney quality air, and just so you know to reference that, it's ANSTO's done work on that and found by that. And given that concept, our air quality is very poor. And in fact, on the PM 2.5s, PM stands for particulate matter, 2.5 being 2.5 micron, the really fine stuff. They have PM 2.5, PM 10. The PM 2.5 you visually can't see, but when it enters your lungs, it enters your bloodstream. It gets through the alveoli and gets into you, all right? And this is the thing that really is bad about air quality in Sydney. Now, given that, I just want to go, we've got all that air, we've got the air in the basin just circulating around, plus obviously some stuff from the Central Coast and from Newcastle Way, or the northern end of the Central Coast, comes south and enters our basin. The PM 2.5 air quality national standard for safety is 8 on an annual basis, 8 whatever it is, grams per year. In Western Sydney, it averages that 9 to 9.5 at the stations. Not peaks at it, it averages it. So it's always above the Australian national standard for air quality. So at certain days, in St Mary's it reaches 93. Out at what was the other one? Out at Riverstone, it averages 84. So it peaks at 10 times what is considered the standard, and the standard says that it's going to actually drop their standard to 7 in the next 2 years. They're not doing anything to improve our air quality. So I just want to say, on an overall scale, firstly, that Western Sydney suffers from a lot of this air quality. In fact, when it comes to the health quality issues, the asthma rates, all the hyperallergenic issues, Western Sydney and the southwest of Sydney have these as a much higher rate per capita than anywhere else in the Sydney health area. So that's the basis. This is not about the incinerator, because the incinerator doesn't exist yet. This is before it even occurs. We already have the worst quality air right now. On average, it is already worse than the Australian standard every single day. So we're already at that space. And then we want to add a number of things. We want to add an airport. We want to add an incinerator. We want to put more roads in. We want to put these things called intermodals in, which will transfer trucks, rail. The intermodal is a change between the mode of transport. So it's truck to train, or or vice versa, or to air. So if the airport goes ahead, it'll be one of those three. And then, of course, when the trucks are involved, there's a lot more is worse air quality. So that's just all layering on top right now. And the way that our current government system goes, it says to us, all right, each project is considered individually, all right? There's no accumulation, all right? And a project that's getting approved, which we'll talk to this project. In 2014, this started talking about it, and it's now 2017. And before it's hopefully never approved, but if it got approved, it's more likely 2020 or 2019 before it's built. And then its quality, plus the widening of all those roads that we hear about, the West Connects and all those, and everything else added onto it, our air quality is going in the wrong direction, our air quality. And this is fundamental, all right? It really comes down to the air you breathe, the food you eat, the land you're on, the soil. They're the fundamentals that society needs to have right, And we, as a society, we should be looking after it. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just move straight into the no incinerator. So who before tonight had heard about the incinerator? So put your hand up, please. All right. I'd say about 50%, maybe 60%. That's great for people like ourselves. And I'd say, well, why? And a lot of people, it comes down to maybe the ABC Four Corners report, which was trashed, where they talked about the waste industry, and there was a small section on the incinerator. But we're in the press quite often now, every second week, telling people in Penrith and in the Western Sydney about it. So the No Incinerator group itself were a lot of little disparate groups who were just working on stuff. They were all angry, frustrated, and doing their own thing, all right? But they went, oh, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. But in doing that space, that was in 2015 when the proposal came up. Now, the proponent said, oh, I've got to consult. There's a box here that says that. So he went and spoke to council. He found out, firstly, well, you're actually what's considered an SSD, State Significant Development. Do people know that? Over $50 million or around that amount. It becomes a decision by Department of Planning. It's too large for councils to deal with. So they take the power off the councils and they make it an independent Department of Planning decision. Now, I'll use the word independent because they do. I'm not necessarily agree with those words being that it's truly independent. So to start with, that's at that level, it's called an SSD, all right? And when you get to an SSD and down the track, it turns into a Planning Assessment Commission. But so the EIS was declared, and he tried to hold some forums. He didn't tell anyone about them. 30 people turned up, all right? 30 people turned up, 2 forums, sorry, so it's 15 each, or say 14 at one, 16 at the other. But some of those people were still very angry, and I've got friends who were there. I wasn't there. I didn't know about this damn thing back then, to be honest. But moving forward, they put EIS 1 in, all right? It got rejected. It was so full of holes, incomplete, inconsistent, that the Department of Planning said, look, the people can't even assess this because it doesn't even have like how much stuff you're going to have in it, how much any information that like how bad it is, or so it got rejected immediately. Oh, months is immediate for Department of Planning, and then they brought out EIS 2, and in EIS 2 they obviously had to get new people in who knew more stuff and put it in. So at that point in time, that's the process we're in now. They came back, and that was about November 2016 when we started to actually hear more about it. We got a lot more data. At the same time, a number of my friends went and were all very individually angry, and one of them actually went and spoke at the time to the member for Blacktown, John Robertson. And John Robertson said to her, yes, I really empathise with you, but it's a done deal, was the way she said, come away. So she came away rather angry, okay? And at that point in time, she came to myself, as well as because she was with the Greens and I'm the convener of the Black 10 Greens. And we got, actually at the time, Jeremy Buckingham involved. It was a decision whether it be Mehreen or Jeremy at that point in time, because there's two portfolios, power versus environment. And we ran our own forum. And we ran a forum at Erskine Park, and we got 350 people there. We had Tanya Davies, the Liberal member. We had Stephen Barley, the Labor mayor. And we had Jeremy Buckingham from Greens all speaking. Plus we had an expert that we'd got over from Western Australia called Jane Bremer from the National Toxics Network to speak to us. And Melinda, who was the person who went and saw John Robertson spoke as well. And we had this forum, and suddenly we did a lot of work together there. They were already a lot of angry people, but they all said, we've got to do something. And we formed a group. This group formed, and then we started getting letters from the Isle of Dump, which is the proponents, lawyers, tell us to cease and desist. Well, we had Facebook pages going. We didn't even know that people were looking at it, to be honest. But obviously his lawyer and he were. And so suddenly we're in this space, whoa, you know. So, all right, a little bit, long story short, we incorporated, you know, we created a group, which I became president of because a lot of people didn't want to do all that sort of stuff. They were a bit scared of us suddenly getting letters from lawyers. We're basically a mums group, to be honest. Mums and kids. And when it comes down to it, the most vulnerable and people that will have the issue are the kids. The fetuses and the kids end up getting cancers, possibly, from the POPs, they call them, which I'll talk to later. But that was the background. So we've got this situation where suddenly we're just talking about one little item. Now, the proponent statement says, look, 2 kilometres of M4 creates just as much pollution as this incinerator. And he's right in one aspect, because the nitrogen oxides, which everyone knows about, which turn into the photochemical smog with UV and all that, and create those clouds that we've been trying to avoid for years, is basically 2 kilometres. And we've got lots of it, and we keep building more roads and putting more trucks and more cars on, and this is accumulating right now everywhere all the time. Don't worry about that bit. That's air quality 101. Like, it's really going bad. But at the same time, one of the things that we learnt through the National Toxics Network is that these things called POPs. POPs are basically when you burn plastics, all right, you end up with dioxins, furans, and PCBs being three of the things that people know about. And they're part of a thing called POPs, which are persistent organic particles. And there's a Stockholm Convention that we've actually signed on to, being Australia, that we will not create any of these. Well, oh, yes, well, that's not stopped us so far. In the end, so one of those issues is that from the research that we know, and there's a particular story about POPs in the Balkans and incinerators, they've found evidence of these particles inside chickens and eggs within a 5 kilometre radius of incinerators. So the people in Western Sydney, particularly the people who live around Eastern Creek, around this radius, are susceptible to these diseases or these conditions, these chemicals, which create cancer. And this is why they're incredibly angry. All right? Now, there is a layering of that, because the EPA, and we've got waste systems already out there, haven't been controlling all the organic waste and municipal waste in the other facilities. So there's a lot of stink that's out there. So everyone relates this incinerator to stink. It's not about stink. It won't stink anywhere near as much as municipal waste or organic waste. It's about, because this will be burned at high temperature. So I'll bring up one other thing, is that this Isle Dump, who's the proponent who wants to build this thing, he also has a facility called the Genesis, where he takes construction waste and sifts out all the concrete, all the broken materials that he can reuse. So 80% of what he reuses, he puts back and recycles, okay? I'll say, very good. it's a good step, you know. But the other 20% goes down into a big pit. But part of that we can't do anything with. If you think about construction waste, it's curtains, it's carpets, right? They're not things that suddenly, and they're fossil fuels. So with the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, he's discussing, let's turn an incinerator energy from waste facility, he calls it, and burn this stuff so that we can create something great. So this is the proponent of what he wants to do. Obviously, I have a completely different framing to this situation to what he does, all right? A lot of us would love if he lived in Western Sydney so that he would have to accept that, or at least his kids did. But that's not the way they work. He lives actually in Vaucluse. So, yes, lucky man, you know, and he has a sea breeze. He gets a better sea breeze on his $50 million yacht over in the, you know, he's got over in the Middle East, but which he goes on. But in the end, I don't begrudge the man. He's done a bit of work, and he's worked hard and done okay. Now, you know, I'm not going to go into his history, to be honest, because I don't think that's part of what this is about. This is just simply about the fact that they want to build an industrial scale item in Western Sydney. Now, where's Western Sydney? We're in the Eastern Creek is basically where this facility wants to be. It's an industrial estate, but it's right on the end of it. So the actual smokestacks, or exhaust stacks I should call them, will be 800 metres from the nearest home, 1.2 kilometres from the nearest school. So, and we talked about 5 kilometre radius for the POPs. Yeah, so if I start talking about the suburbs that will be affected, include Doonside, Bungarraby, Rooty Hill, Mount Druitt, Erskine Park, Collerton, all those areas, it's a big radius of suburbs that will all be within that 5 kilometres, because he's in an industrial estate, yeah, fair enough, but he's right on the edge of it, and the radius and stuff. Now, we're actually separately talking, it's only 1.2 kilometres from an Aldi depot, and a Woolworths depot is about 1.3 kilometres, it's just down the road, and the Star Track depot. So there's 3 major truck handling facilities for handling waste, which effectively, these POPs last decades, they're not something that just appears and disappears. And there's a distribution centres which will then send stuff away. So engage. But so I just want to take a step back and go, okay, so this is what it's about. So this is what the incinerator is about, and that's what we've been angry about. And then, so I'll just move quickly now on. So you know background, that's it, you know? I think I've done enough detail there. So when I move forward, I've got to talk about, so where we believe in the energy from waste policy from the EPA, it states there must be community consultation and agreement. All right, so social licence needs to be occurred before you should build one of these. So we as a group do not believe that's occurred. No. To prove that, we've got a petition that we're filling out, and the petition which has an alternate fact is that when you get 10th on a single issue, if you get 1,000 individual signatures to which are in the New South Wales electoral roll, and then you present it to Parliament, it needs to be debated in Parliament. Okay, so recently they've done that with the M4 tolls. Obviously, the Parliament in charge, which is the government in charge, can shut it down quite quickly, but it has been represented, it has been told, they know, you know. So it's a grassroots, very old or I don't know, whatever rule, procedure, that's the best route, procedure, that was sort of allowing, you know, the old, you know, you can have your own town petition and get something up and, you know, into Parliament. So we're doing that. So it's got 2 purposes. One is we wanted to have it discussed in Parliament, and the second one, and we want to make sure that they know that we're against it. So I'll just say I've got the petition at the back desk there, and 80% of the people who signed it are locals, and we're happy with that, but we want everyone to sign it who's heard this, and is willing to. You don't have to be willing to, but if you are, please sign. Yes, I can give you some pages to do that. That'd be great. All right, you like to leverage. That's it. That's good. Thank you. So talk about all that, and that's really the issue so far. Since then, we obviously, there's already legislation in the Upper House Parliament. We've said no, well, wasn't we, but it's actually been led by the Greens. 15-kilometre radius around a residential zone is banned to have any incinerator. All right, so that would exclude Sydney and obviously large sections of New South Wales, including obviously Newcastle, Wollongong, and a few others, major cities, Goulburn, and all that. So the idea is you've got to put it, if you think it's necessary, put it in a place that's safe. Put it on the coast, so the sea breeze can take away the bad air, and then and put it somewhere. And then on the other front, like I haven't even talked to it, but I'll summarise whether it's the circular economy. When it comes to materials, we should, if you want to recycle and you want to reuse and all that, you don't suddenly halfway through the process burn it. That's incineration as a method of managing your waste stream is very poor. It's a very old style of management. Everyone's been told previously to get rid of their incinerators in their backyards and all that and the problems with it. All right, this is a fancy incinerator with very good air cleaning capacity. It won't achieve zero, obviously, If it could, then they could just reuse the air. They wouldn't have to send it off into the atmosphere. But it's a bad thing. And I'll just say the size of it now. I'll just say one last thing to make you realise. 1.3 million tonnes per annum is the proposal. 1.3 million tonnes per annum. Now, this is of the waste after it's been screened. So the Genesis facility screens 80% of the waste, all right? And so that means 20%. So 5 times that is 6.5 million tonnes of waste will end up in this facility, screened out and dropped off, and then 1.3 will go through the incinerator. 6.5 million tonnes of waste is a large amount. It's more than they make in the... He focuses on construction and demolition waste, which is buildings and stuff. There's commercial industrial waste, which is the level of waste when they repurpose cars and fridges and all that. And then he's going to have to go into the municipal waste stream and organics and all that. It'll be enormous if it goes ahead on the scale that he's talking about. Too large, too big. So from my point of view, we're opposed to it. We're doing our bit, and we've done our bit politically as well through people like Mehreen, who's one of the people who spoke at budget estimates, asking about this, as did Jeremy Buckingham, to Stuart Ayres, being the Minister of Western Sydney, to Gladys. We've got to stop it. In the end, I'll be dead before all the suffering occurs. But as a society, we're making bad decisions, and this is just an example of it. So, thanks.